I see one person has joined here in TikTok. Still waiting on problem here on the Twitch end. Don't know what's going on there. I thought I had the problem resolved. For those of you who are joining me here on TikTok, I'm lecturing mainly on Twitch, giving a live history lecture. You may want to hop over to Twitch, because there you'll be able to see the PowerPoint and to ask questions easier, etc. I think I'm finally live here on Twitch now. Was having some technical difficulties. I don't see anyone in the chat yet on that end, but sometimes it takes a few minutes for everyone to get in. So we'll give some people some time. But yes, if you'll... Oh, there's one person here in Twitch for sure. Hello, Tim. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. I was having some technical difficulties in more than one way, but I think I'm set now. It's always got to be something, right? Anyway, yes, so if you're... let me talk to the TikTok people here one more time. If you're joining me live on TikTok here, that's great. Glad to have you. You may want to consider jumping over to Twitch. The link is in my bio. That's where I'm mainly giving a history lecture. Today we're talking about the history of the Ice Cream Man, interestingly enough. And there I'll have a PowerPoint, and that's mostly where I'll be focusing my attention. I'll try to talk to you people on TikTok here where I can. Also, please forgive that the camera looks kind of weird. I cracked my screen today, and I'm waiting on the new phone to get here on Tuesday, so that's fun. But I'm going to give a few more minutes here for people to roll in. I don't know how many people I've got in Twitch just yet. It shows me 0 viewers in my software, which can't be right because I know I have at least one person here in the chat. So that's how these things go, I suppose. Just one of those days. But today's going to be an interesting lecture, I think. I actually I have mutuals, friends, whatever you call it, on a TikTok with a singer named Jordan McGraw, who was wearing an Ice Cream Man costume for one of his latest video, for his latest song, and he wanted me to talk about the history of the Ice Cream Man, and so I did that for a TikTok, and now I'm going to do that for a whole lecture here because I found a lot of really interesting stuff. Hello, my 13-year-old and I love you. Well, that's very nice. Thank you. Glad to hear it. Like I said, I'm going to wait a few minutes for people to roll in. I think we're getting kind of a slow start here today, which no worries. It's a Sunday afternoon. That's kind of how things go. But yeah, I'm glad to have you guys here with me. And we should have fun today. These Sunday lectures are always pretty entertaining. I always learn a lot putting them together. It's not just me teaching you guys, it's me teaching myself. History is the best, so I'm glad I found your channel. That's what I like to hear. Thank you very much. And those of you, anyone who is here in the Twitch chat, if you guys could sound off for me, because for some reason it's showing me 0 viewers, but I don't think that's right, because I saw one person in the chat. So anyone who happens to be here in Twitch, if you will let me know. Hello, low-end machinist. Okay, so there's people here. It's just the software is not behaving for some reason. Now it shows 4 viewers. So I don't know. It's what's happening. Hello, Thundercracker. One more call to the people here on TikTok Live. If you want to join me on Twitch, where the actual PowerPoint and everything is, the link to my Twitch channel is in my bio, and that's where I'm mainly giving today's lecture. No, I am not Muslim. I'm not 100% sure the purpose of that question, but no. Haven't seen you on my For You page in forever. I wish you had. I don't know what's going on with that. And there's Jess. Hello, Jess. Jess, you're going to be happy because there's a little bit more in today's lecture about the UK and history and events in the UK than there normally is. So there's some things for you guys, my friends across the pond. It's still not completely about that, but I've worked that in a little more than I usually do. In part because it happened to be connected. in some interesting ways. All right, well, we're 5 minutes past 3 o'clock by my time now, so I am going to go ahead and get started. Maybe I'll try to go a little slowly and let people find their way in. But let's go ahead and get things started. Get the slideshow up. And there we go. So, today we're going to talk about the history of the ice cream men and, to some extent, ice cream trucks, because they go hand in hand. And so the title is From Good Humors to Drug Dealers. And yes, we're going to get to ice cream man drug dealers there toward the end. So stick around, because that's going to be wild. We get an international education. That's right. I mean, my history degree, when I complete it, my PhD will be in transatlantic history. So I like to think I know at least a little bit about goings on other places than the United States, but it gets kind of complicated. So, before we can talk about the actual ice cream men, we have to talk a little about the history of ice cream itself, right? We have to kind of get a solid foundation there. So frozen treats of some kind go back thousands of years to the Roman Empire, to Persian Empire, to the Mongol Empire. Now, at this time, you're talking about essentially early versions of snow cones, right? You know, they had people harvest snow and use fruit syrups and honey and that kind of thing to flavor snow. And you start to see early versions of what you might call sorbet now, right? Ice-based treats. And by the medieval time and into the Renaissance, ice treats become really common among royalty. And I learned that even the Europeans were already making red wine slushes, which is something now you associate, with being in a hip shopping center or something, right? But the European nobility and royalty were consuming red wine slushes 1,000 years ago, which maybe not 1,000, maybe more like 800 years ago, 900 years ago. But still, I thought that was really fascinating. Now, the problem with creating ice cream was the freezing point of the ingredients and the freezing point of dairy, and the use of the endothermic reaction for making ice cream. So that's using salt to lower the temperature, to lower, to make it so that it's easier to freeze ice cream, becomes known in the 16th century, and then it becomes widely known in the 17th century. So now you can actually freeze ice cream in an efficient way. And so that's when they start using dairy to make something we would recognize as ice cream. Now, this is extremely difficult to make. I don't know if any of you have ever made ice cream by hand with one of those crank machines or something like that. But it's pretty tedious. It's not fun, right? And so this remains a treat for elite people well into the early 19th century. And the people who are able to eat it, often it's because they have slaves or other workers who will make it. George Washington famously adored ice cream and had slaves produce it for him. So then comes the development of steam power and machinery, and then artificial refrigeration in the latter half of the 19th century. And this is what will allow for the mass production and sale of ice cream among common people. Pretty Strong Court says, my family would crank in shifts. Yeah, that's often the case. Or there came, the time they started making the ones that are like a big ball that you can roll around on the ground, and so you could turn it into a game for the kids, right? And to make them think they're having fun rather than working, kind of Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn with whitewashing the fence kind of thing, right? But then, like I said, we finally develop machinery and power that will allow for the mass production of ice cream. Now, these images on this slide I really like. The one on the left, the drawing, is from 1807. Some have argued that is the earliest depiction of an edible ice cream cone, which we'll talk about. And that carving is on the Doge's Palace in Venice. So it's from like 1600ish, somewhere in the 17th century, I believe. I don't that may or may not be an edible cone, and it's probably more like sorbet or gelato. It's probably not an ice cream type thing that he's eating, but I think it's amazing still that that's being depicted on a carving on the Doge's palace. So, like I said, mass production of ice cream begins in the latter half of the 19th century, and in the late 19th century, 1880s, 1890s, ice cream carts, push carts, will proliferate in the U.S. and U.K. These will be common on every street corner in every city or town of any size with people to sell to. Just like every other kind of food cart, you know, New York, you're going to be seeing hot dogs and things. I mean, that's how that worked. And this ice cream was sold in something called penny licks, and boy, is it gross. And ice cream would be licked out of a little glass bowl or glass cup that you were given, and then usually the guy running the push cart would just lightly rinse it off in some water in the push cart. And this, as you may imagine, was extremely unsanitary, but it was also extremely popular. It was only a penny, right, for your scoop of ice cream. But this leads to ice cream poisonings, to all kinds of sickness, especially the spread of tuberculosis, of botulism, of all kinds of things. And the other element of this is that pasteurization of milk doesn't become standard until the 1920s. Pasteurization of milk existed, and it started to become more common by the 1890s. But actually, there was a lot of debate, even like there is now, over raw milk versus pasteurized milk, over the health benefits, and also at the time the additional cost, of setting up pasteurization equipment and all of that. So some companies actually were so afraid of the backlash of pasteurizing their milk and dairy products that they would adopt the practice in secret, which is kind of wild. So again, these ice cream poisonings are spreading every city. There's mass sickness you can read about in the newspapers from ice cream, and this is both in the U.S. and the U.K. and other countries. And that's really important. We're going to come back to why this sickness and these poisonings are important in the development of the ice cream man and the ice cream truck. Now, eventually, right around the early 1900s, 1910s, the introduction of edible wafers and cones and cups will displace the penny lick. The first ice cream sandwiches are being developed at this time. That's what I mean by wafers. Cones and cups are both coming around. You may have heard the famous story about the 1900 World's Fair and ice cream being sold in a rolled up waffle, inventing the waffle cone. Now that's just one element. Waffle cups are patented by an Italian man in 1903. So there's lots of things that are happening all around the same time to create edible vessels for ice cream. Now, on top of all this, as far as the ice cream man is concerned, it's important to note that at this time, an ice cream peddler was just like any other street vendor. It was the same as buying, a sandwich or a trinket or, any kind of anything. There was no idea of the ice cream man at this time. Not really. Which brings us to a man named Harry Burt. Now, Harry Burt was a confectioner, a candy maker in Youngstown, Ohio. And he had started just kind of a regular candy store, and his most popular product was a lollipop called the Jolly Boy, which was essentially, a large piece of hard candy on a stick, not much different than a modern lollipop. Lollipops were relatively novel still at the time, and extremely popular. And this man, once he starts dealing in ice cream on top of candy, I want to check this comment here. Aligning with Prohibition, the Methodist Church used pasteurization to avoid serving wine in communion. I didn't know about the connection of pasteurization and wine in that sense. We are going to talk about another way ice cream and Prohibition line up, but I didn't know that particular information, so that's really interesting. At any rate, so this man will begin dealing with ice cream, and he will do two things, or in many ways, three things that very much will revolutionize and standardize the ice cream industry. First, he will develop the use of a chocolate coating for ice cream. This is really hard to do, to get chocolate to behave correctly and to freeze onto ice cream. So he develops a chocolate coating that uses coconut oil, which, if you've ever gone to the grocery store and bought Magic Shell, which I think goes by other names in other countries, I'm not sure about that. But that's an ice cream coating that freezes pretty much instantly when you put it on your bowl of ice cream, and it's the same thing. It uses coconut oil mixed with the chocolate to create that consistency, and of course, coconut oil has a different freezing and melting temperature, right? It's liquid at room temperature. And so that was actually the issue with this ice cream bar he develops, is his kids tell him it's tasty, but it's too messy to eat. So his son suggests that they use the sticks from the lollipops and to give the ice cream bars a handle. Dairy Queen dip cones were a favorite of mine. Yes, I love Dairy Queen dip cones. That's something I enjoy, and they're doing the same thing since the 20s. This formula for chocolate coating is been changed very little. So, like I said, he will also start putting ice cream bars on a stick, and this comes to be known as the Good Humor bar, which we'll talk about. And the other thing he does for the Good Humor brand is he's the first to deliver ice cream in trucks, motorized vehicles rather than push carts. And I haven't found too much on if there was something specific that made him think to do this, or if it was just sort of logical, right? Now, it's important to know that refrigerated trucks hadn't been invented yet, so these trucks literally just had like giant old-fashioned ice boxes and big blocks of ice in them, but that worked. Refrigerated trucks won't come along till later. So, let's talk about these Good Humor bars. This is the first ice cream bar, like I said, because it's the first chocolate coating. Or at least it's the first mass-produced. There's some debate here over with if the Eskimo pie, which I believe has a new name now, the Edie's pie, I think, because of the connotations of the word Eskimo, which I understand. But at any rate, there's debate over which of those came first or which was mass-produced first, and it's very complicated, and I don't know the answer. But I know that Good Humor is the first that, becomes a recognizable brand across the country. And this name, Good Humor, comes from a 19th century belief that taste and personality were related. So if, you enjoyed eating sweet, tasty things, you were probably a person of good humor, right? I don't know how that got started, and in fact, this was my first time learning of it as I was researching this presentation, so I would love to learn some more about that. And again, like I talked about, this coating will use coconut oil and also cocoa butter. It will freeze on contact but melt just as quickly, but it's really pretty fun to eat. Now, Harry Burt wants a patent for this invention, but for whatever reason, the patent office was going really slow on him. So, excuse me, let me take a drink of my water here. Oh, Jordan McGraw, who I was telling you you guys on Twitch about, has commented with some ice cream. Great, glad you're here. It's not just on TikTok. No, I'm presenting on Twitch, and the link is in my bio if you want to hop over on Twitch. Waco, love Waco. I know some people at the Dr. Pepper Museum there. Harry Burt will go to Washington himself with pails full of his ice cream bars, gallons, huge amounts of these ice cream bars, and hand them out as samples to everybody he can get that's in charge in Washington. And then his patent will get granted much more quickly when he gives out these ice cream bars. And I love that story. I think that's fantastic. My Twitch, it's the same name. Actually, it's Professor _ Pork Pie, I think. But if you hop out of this live and go to my link tree in my bio, the Twitch link is in there. So, now we finally come to the first true ice cream man. The idea for Harry Burt delivering this ice cream was he wanted to convey cleanliness, sanitation, safety. He wanted to show that this was much, much different than the penny licks of decades past. Just came from TikTok. Great. Thank you. Love it. Thank you for being here. Hello from England. Howdy from Texas. So to convey this sanitation idea, he did a couple of things. He dressed his employees in clean, crisp, white uniforms that resembled that of hospital workers, hospital orderlies. And they will also drive a white freezer truck equipped with bells that to me sort of conveys like a medical vehicle too. Right? And the Good Humor Man was also trained to be pleasant and kind. He was supposed to tip his hat to the ladies and to salute the gentlemen. They actually had to go through a 3-day, like opening training before they sent them out on the road. Good homemade ice cream ideas would be milk, vanilla, peaches, and a few raw eggs for large batches. That does sound good. I love some peach ice cream. Um, and the Good Humor Man becomes like a staple of the American landscape. The Good Humor Man is somebody that people would know in their neighborhoods, right? And this quote that I've got here is from a Time magazine article from 1965 that says, "To the young, he has become better known than the fire chief, more welcome than the mailman, more respected than the corner cop." And so that really sort of conveys how important the ice cream man was to American society. Were they as popular as milkmen? That's an interesting question. My assumption, I don't know this for a fact because I haven't done that deep of research. My assumption would be that the Good Humor Man was more popular and more recognizable than the milkman because kids were not flocking to the milkman's truck in the same way, right? It wasn't as exciting, and it didn't have the bells, and the milkman wasn't necessarily trained to interact with people and to be, a figure in the neighborhood in that way. So my guess is that yes, they were somebody more popular, more respected than the milkman. But that's a great question. That's worth looking into a little deeper. Making a custard with eggs instead of heavy cream, just heavy cream, makes a difference. From what I understand, that's true. Now, I've never actually had to make ice cream myself, but that makes sense to me from the little bit that I know. And again, so it's up until the 1970s that the Good Humor Man is a part of American society, and we will talk a little bit more about that on another slide about how and why that ends. But now I want to talk about another particular ice cream man and another sort of angle for this story, and that's Tom Carville. If you're familiar with Carville ice cream, Tom Carville is a Greek immigrant to New York, born Athanasios Carvelis. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably not, but I tried. And he will borrow $15 from his future wife Agnes to become an ice cream man. He wants to rent and drive an ice cream truck in the early 1930s. And on Memorial Day 1934, Tom Carville will get a flat tire on his ice cream truck in the town of Hartsdale, New York. And, he's got to do something, right? So he just starts selling his ice cream where he is. He just plants in a parking lot near where he got the flat tire. And to his surprise, he discovers that people are really enjoying buying and eating the softer ice cream that started to melt because the truck is broken down. Again, we don't have refrigerated trucks yet at this time. They're just got big ice boxes in them. So he discovers a couple of things. He discovers that ice cream can be sold both as soft serve, as we now call it, and from a fixed location. You don't necessarily have to go to people's neighborhoods or even to the town square. People want ice cream, they'll come to you, he discovers. And so he will develop the soft serve machine 2 years later in 1936 to specifically make soft ice cream. And he will develop new freezers for actually frozen custard and custard-based ice cream in the 1940s. Now he starts franchising out his stores. Carville is being sold in stores mostly rather than trucks. But he finds that a lot of these stores are failing, and when he does the research, he finds that these people opening stores with his name on them are choosing poor locations, they're making poor business decisions, so he wants to control the quality. And so he essentially develops the modern franchise concept as we know it, starting in 1947 and through the 1950s. Now, yes, franchising in some form goes back decades, even into like the 1850s with Singer sewing machines, depending on how you want to argue it. But the version of franchising that we recognize now and the type of partnership between corporate and the franchisor or franchisee, excuse me. That begins with Carville. Weren't King trucks refrigerated? When did they get introduced? I don't know what you mean by King trucks. I think I'm misunderstanding. I thought it was the early 20s. So if I read correctly, refrigerated trucks with actual artificial refrigeration in them didn't begin until 1938. And before that, they had either, ice machines in them, but not actual like refrigerators, freezers in them, or they just had like old ice boxes that held big cubes of, blocks of ice. Now it's possible I got that wrong. I do this research. Weren't the first refrigerated trucks King? Oh, you mean might not be. Okay, I understand. I understand what you mean now. Now, I don't know the brand, and again, you could have it right, and I could have got it wrong. I can't confirm that without going back to do some more of the reading. I do very broad sort of research to put these lectures together, and I might have screwed that one up. So I'm not sure. It's worth looking into. But what I do know, at least in terms of this concept here, is that once he got that flat tire and his truck was broken down, he had no way to keep that ice cream from melting. For this story. And Nikki says, came here from TikTok. This is fascinating. Great. Glad to have you. Thank you for being here. I sure do appreciate it. So, now I want to talk a little bit about ice cream jingles. I know we're kind of just switching gears without really a narrative here, but it's just the best place I had to put it. Because this is one of the things we associate with these ice cream men and ice cream trucks more than anything, is jingles, right? Again, the Good Humor trucks, those first Good Humor trucks just had regular bells on them. And a Los Angeles-based ice cream man driving a Good Humor truck named Paul Hawkins is the first man to come up with the idea to do jingles. And he will replace the bells in his truck with a custom-built music box sometime in the 1930s. And he will, the music box will play an Eastern European tune called Stoda la Pumpa, which I didn't know when I heard it, but it was apparently very well known at the time. It's not one I recognized for whatever reason. And he and very few others will be the only people, a couple other people will come up with this idea to do music boxes in the trucks. But it's only really, like 3 or 4 people, something like that at the most. But in the 1950s, an engineer named Mark Nichols will develop music boxes specifically for ice cream trucks, with a selection of different jingles to choose from. And this is when you start getting those tunes that we recognize now. Turkey in the Straw, Do Your Ears Hang Low, The Entertainer, all of these ones. At least are the ones we recognize in the United States. I don't know, I have heard that Greensleeves is one of the more popular ones in the UK. I've never visited, and I could have that wrong. Jess, if you're still here, or someone else from that side of the pond, if you could confirm for me or not confirm that Greensleeves is a very popular ice cream van tune, as you would call it. McKinley Jones in 39 gave the patent to Thermo King from what I just saw. So in fact, it sounds like I had that right then on the refrigerated trucks, which I'm glad if that's the case. I'm glad if I didn't get that wrong. But in any case, so these ice cream jingles have the power of nostalgia, right? They play these songs that kids already recognize, but then, as kids grow up, they still recognize those tunes, and of course adults hear those tunes and they feel that nostalgia too, and it makes them perhaps want to buy some ice cream or at least have their kids do it. And so these ice cream jingles become really important. Although, as you can see from this image, new jingles get written specifically for ice cream companies as well. I have not heard an ice cream van in about a decade. That's funny. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that, Jess, actually, on your side of the pond. And when we get toward the end of this lecture, we're going to talk about a reason that the ice cream vans have gone into decline on both sides of the Atlantic. Someone on TikTok has confirmed for me that ice cream trucks do use green sleeves all the time from Sussex in the UK. Thank you. Appreciate that. I actually got ice cream from a truck for the first time in a few months ago, and I'm 23. Wow, that's great. I'm from Ohio. I haven't heard an ice cream truck in probably 10 years either. I heard one last summer. You know, problem is I haven't lived in the kind of neighborhood that would have one in a while. My neighborhood's kind of spread out. But I did still hear them all the time when I was a kid. But again, there's a few reasons for the decline over the past few decades of them that we will talk about. But first, then, let's talk about actually the growth of an ice cream culture in the in the mid 20th century. Sorry, lost my train of thought for just a second there. So as we've talked about, ice cream in general already played a strong part in society. It was popular. Of course, if you've heard of like ice cream socials, right? Ice cream certainly had a part in society, but that part grows and it changes. So from 1929 to 1933 is the Great Depression, right? People have no money. And in America, they have no booze. Prohibition began in 1920 and didn't end for till 33, when FDR famously said, "What America needs now is a drink," or however exactly the words go. And so ice cream and candy and other treats will begin replacing alcohol as a vice, and an inexpensive one. Those original Good Humor ice cream bars only cost a nickel, which certainly was not so much. A lot of people could afford an ice cream bar. I grew up out of town on a farm as a kid. Didn't see an ice cream van until I moved to the Metroplex. Yeah. So again, so ice cream will become a very popular treat during the Depression years. But World War II, there's going to be sugar and dairy rationing in the U.S. and the U.K., and this will kill the small-scale peddlers, and then competition ultimately, right? It drives the individuals pretty much out of business. They have no way to get what they need to make their product. And so because of this, mass-produced ice cream, and by extension ice cream trucks, ice cream vans, will become a staple in the 1950s after World War II. The big sort of corporations will begin to take over and become even more recognizable and even more a part of American and British society. And I say British society because I want to talk about a particular British ice cream product and its advertisement that I really think is fascinating. And that's what's called the 99 Flake, which is used to describe that if you see that ice cream cone with the candy bar stuck in it, that's the name of that together. The Flake we don't have here in the United States, at least I've never seen it, but as you can see, it's made of like thinly folded layers of chocolate. The story goes that an employee at Cadbury saw chocolate overflowing a mold and becoming sort of ribbons and folds, and decided to make that on purpose in 1920. And somebody, individual, push cart ice cream peddlers in the UK, get the idea to start putting those Flake bars in their ice cream cones. 99s cost at least £2 these days. Now, it's funny you say that, Jess, because it never cost 99 anything. That's not where the name comes from, and a lot of people think it is. And we'll talk about that. So, is it true that Thatcher worked on the development of these when she was a chemist? I don't know. That didn't come up in anything I read. It could be. I have no idea. I can tell you, in any article I read on this, it was never even mentioned. So I'm not sure about that. So these ice creams are being sold by the mid-1920s, and in 1930, Cadbury begins advertising them, and they begin actually making half-size Flake bars specifically to be stuck in ice cream cones. They'll begin taking advantage of this market. Now the name, the 99. There are a lot of name theories. Some of them come from addresses. There's a couple of different permanent ice cream shops that were at 99, whichever street they were on, that were selling these at the time, and some think it came from those. There's also a theory involving Italian immigrant ice cream sellers, excuse me. I tried to combine sellers and peddlers, and that didn't work. The majority, well, maybe not the majority, but a huge number of the pushcart ice cream men at this time in the UK are Italian immigrants. And Italian immigrants who were born in 1899 and were up to serve in World War I were referred to collectively as the Boys of 99. And so there's a theory, right, that these guys, these Italian men that were the Boys of 99 and were selling these ice cream cones, gave it that name, the 99 Flake. I don't know which one is, true or not, which one's the most accurate. It might be both, it might be none. I don't know. But it actually never had anything to do with the price, which is frustrating to many. But I also really I wanted to talk about the Flake Girl and the advertisements for the Flake bar and for 99 Flake ice cream. So Flake Girl advertisements will begin in 1959 because sex sells, right? Let's sell some more of these candy bars. And you can see from this image here, this woman is very seductively eating this ice cream bar. It's pretty risque almost in a way, and they're all like this. Yes, scandalous is in some ways a good word for it, because they will end the Flake Girl advertisements in 2004 because of, sort of complaints and things like that. Maybe not complaints is the right word, but there will be a relatively large public backlash to the end of Flake Girl advertisements, and so they will return again in 2007. And then again in 2010, they sort of reworked them so that it was focused more on the chocolate than it was on the woman and her being sort of flirtatious. I don't actually know when the last one they've done is, or if they're still going on. I didn't really find anyone talking about them past 2010, so I don't know if they've ended again or not for sure. But I thought that was pretty fascinating, this Flake Girl advertisement campaign. So I also then need to talk about another very popular ice cream van brand, and that's Mr. Whippy. And the way Mr. Whippy gets founded is we actually have to start with a U.S. company called Mr. Softy, which is soft serve ice cream. And this company is founded in 1956 and becomes pretty popular pretty quickly. And so an Italian ice cream man, or an English-born Italian descent ice cream man named Dominic Facchino, will attempt to get a franchise license for the UK, but he will be denied. I'm not sure why that was. But ultimately then he will decide to start his own company, which he calls Mr. Whippy, in 1958. And it's hugely popular. It's a great company, and again, has these ice cream vans. And these are the first ice cream vans in the UK as far as I can find. I could have that wrong, but everything I read seems to suggest it was all push carts mostly before Mr. Whippy. It's popular enough that they will expand internationally in 1962. Mr. Whippy will actually come back across to the United States and also to Australia and New Zealand and other countries. And it becomes so well known and so popular that it becomes what they call a genericized trademark. So this is, when everyone says Kleenex, for tissue, right? And things like this, words and phrases that become the common parlance, right? So you start to see now, like this ice cream van that I've got pictured here is not an official Mr. Whippy van. It's just a phrase, a name that everyone uses for that type of ice cream. And so now we come essentially to the end of an era by the 1960s into the 1970s, and for a few reasons. In the 1970s, the Good Humor Company will sell their fleet of trucks. They will retire the fleet to focus on grocery distribution instead. And they will face, this is at the same time, they're facing several federal lawsuits due to unsanitary production in their factories. Nothing in their trucks, as far as I know, is being, they don't have any marks for that. But the actual production in the factories is getting poor marks. And so they decide to improve that and to invest in that. They need to retire the trucks. And ice cream trucks, no, not Good Humor's. Yes, I know. Now, you can, of course, still buy Good Humor ice cream in the grocery store today, or at least in some grocery stores. I know I have it. But as a result, ice cream trucks will become more vibrant. They're not those stark white trucks anymore, and they'll become less sanitary to the degree that they ever were. I think there's always a debate over, hordes of children grabbing ice cream from this guy, how sanitary that actually was. Although it was loads more sanitary than the penny licks system, no doubt about that. But they'll become even less sanitary, both in a literal sense and in a sort of metaphorical sense in the way that the ice cream men behave and the way the activities that they do, and we're getting to that. The other reason, right, is by this time many families own home freezers, right? By the 70s, most people are able to afford a home freezer. In the 40s, 50s, even into the 60s, it might have been a luxury for some, but not so much anymore. Penny lick system. Yes, Anasan, sorry that you missed that, but just a brief recap from the beginning is that in the 1890s and 1900s, ice cream was sold from push carts in little glass cups called penny licks, and you would lick them out and then give the glass cup back to the vendor, who would just kind of lightly rinse it off. It was pretty gross, and it spread a lot of disease. Now, despite the end of the ice cream trucks, this will remain obviously a really important source of nostalgic memories, an important part of American culture, and to some degree in the UK also. Eddie Murphy in his 1983 special Delirious has a great bit about the ice cream man. I encourage you to go to YouTube and type in, Eddie Murphy ice cream man and go watch that bit, because it is so good. And he talks about, the excitement of running to get ice cream and chasing down the truck and all those things. But it mostly becomes a thing of the past. There are very few around compared to when they were in every neighborhood in the 40s, 50s, 60s. And this that we're going to talk about now is one of my favorite examples of the end of this era of the sanitary good humor man ice cream truck. And this is the Glasgow ice cream wars. So in the 1980s in Scotland, ice cream truck based crime syndicates will form. The firms, they call them, is their term for crime syndicates, crime firms. And ice cream men will sell drugs and fence goods and engage in all kinds of illicit activities through their ice cream trucks. And this becomes relatively lucrative crime, and so turf wars will break out. And this will result in violence. Ice cream men literally fighting each other for turf. The one I heard last summer, the people who live there said the truck is doing suspicious stuff. It probably was, Anasan. So in these turf wars, at one point, an 18-year-old boy named Andrew Doyle resists being recruited by one of these firms and being intimidated into selling drugs. And he and his family will be murdered by arson. 6 people will die when their flat, their apartment, is burned down. Now, there's a lot of debate over whether or not they were actually supposed to be killed. The people who were charged for this claim that they were just supposed to be frightened and it was never supposed to go that far. There was literally a 20-year legal battle over what happened, how it happened, why it happened. I believe ultimately the 2 sort of masterminds of this were ultimately convicted on most, if not all, of the charges leveled against them. But it's kind of an insane story to me. But it doesn't go away. In both the UK and the US, ice cream drivers still today are often engaged in illicit activity and in turf wars. There's just a lot fewer of them. So it's kind of amazing to see how far the ice cream man and the ice cream truck have fallen, in my opinion. There needs to be a Goodfellas style movie about ice cream crime syndicates. You know what? If somebody puts that on Kickstarter, I will be first in line to back that one. I would absolutely see the Goodfellas or Godfather or some other, mafia movie about the ice cream firms. Because it's kind of wild. But so that sort of funny but sort of sad note brings us to the end of that lecture. I'm happy to take any more questions, any comments you have, any feelings, anything you want to talk about. I really enjoyed this one, and I think we all learned some fun stuff today. And you guys on TikTok, again, I will try to pay attention here if you guys have any questions or comments. I see Layla here says, I've never thought of ice cream drivers ice cream truck drivers were gangsters. Yeah, it's not something that first comes to mind, but you can also kind of see how it makes sense, I think, right? The ice cream truck is a pretty good mobile place of business to do crime from. I will 100% back a Kickstarter on that too. we gotta find a filmmaker, guys. We gotta find somebody who knows how to make us a movie like this, um, because it is. And I haven't found any other stories of the ice cream crime syndicates as wild as the Glasgow ice cream wars, but maybe they're out there and I just didn't come across them in the little bit of research I did for this lecture. Um, but yeah, like I said, it's kind of amazing to see that ice cream men were once, one of the most respectable, important men in society, one of the most important ones, and then they become gangsters that murder people, burn down their flats. Uh, it's a big transformation, and of course to see that change in sanitary operations, right? To go from those gross penny licks to sanitized, or not sanitized, but cleanly trucks, and then back again. That's good if you didn't. They're doing their job good, yeah, I suppose. I remember there being a little bit about ice cream at the Mob Museum in Las Vegas. Interesting. Maybe I need to look at like the other, like the mafia and like the Vegas mob and the other groups and see what involvement they had in ice cream. Um, and it's funny because in general organized crime gets involved in all kinds of commercial products. Al Capone famously shipped alcohol all over the country in hot springs water bottles. Uh, so, hey Professor, it's Fox Librarian. Hello, Fox Librarian. Thank you for being here. I sure do appreciate it. We've come pretty much to the end of today's presentation, although it's going to be on YouTube for you a little later, as always. I put these all on YouTube to be watched back. Somebody here on TikTok has asked me a question. I'm a CS major, but I'm interested in history. Would a history minor be worth it? I assume CS is criminal science. I don't know that for a fact. But yes, a history minor is always worth it. And that's not just my bias talking. That's some of it, of course. But the history discipline isn't just about learning the actual history. It's about learning how to think critically, how to put together arguments and narratives. Computer science. It's still great. In fact, it's even more great. You absolutely want to take at least one history class. Take a minor if you can, absolutely. Because, again, you really learn a lot about how to put together arguments, how to think critically, how to think from lots of different angles. I would say yes. I would seriously consider it. I'll definitely be catching up later on YouTube. Good, great, glad to hear it. I heard recently that Frank Sinatra had mob ties. Is that true? As far as I know, it is. I've never done the research on that or the real reading. I don't know a lot about Frank Sinatra, actually, even though I should. That's something I've always heard as well. I would be shocked if it wasn't true. But I don't know the specifics. Just joined, what's the conversation? Unfortunately, you've joined right here at the end. We just did a lecture, mostly on Twitch, on the history of the ice cream man and ice cream trucks. I do live Twitch lectures every Sunday at 3 p.m. The link to my Twitch is in my bio. There's also Discord that you can join for announcements and other things like that. Says, I stumbled on your page. How often do you go live? Every Sunday at 3 p.m. unless something else comes up, and occasionally other times. So that's that. We're coming to the end. TikToks, thanks for the presentation. Love your TikToks. Always glad to see them. Thank you. I appreciate it, guys, very much. I think we've come to that time. Adds to calendar with reminders. Very good. Yes. And again, if you're not on the Discord, be sure to join that, because then I put announcements and there's a little bit of chatting and stuff that goes in there too. What do you think led to the decline of soda shops, ice cream shops? We'll answer this question and then we'll sign off. I think part of it is the development of other kinds of entertainment, because going to the soda shop and the ice cream parlor and that kind of thing was a form of, communal entertainment. It was social. So when you start to get other ways that people entertain themselves, I think that's one of the things that takes over. And again, it used to be, you know, soda used to be more of a treat before it became sort of, especially in America, just, you know, the thing that people drink all day, every day. And ice cream was a treat, especially because people didn't have those home freezers like I talked about. So I think the ability to get ice cream at home and, you know, the other kinds of entertainment, you know, going to get ice cream is not the entertainment that it used to be. So I think those are certainly factors. But there's also probably a lot more to it, and that's a great question that would be worth digging deeper into. And with that, I'm going to sign off for this afternoon. It's been fun. Thank you so much, guys, for being here, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.